cohort. Gary owns 2 businesses, and he's starting hopefully a new venture, it sounds like. One is a moving company called Gary Moves, and then the other one is Wild Ways Integration, which is more of his therapeutic practice, and then he's hopefully doing Motorcycle Adventures. Probably not the right name, but that's what I remember. It's an adventure, yeah. See, through his practice is kind of like experiential journey. So there you go.
Thank you, Brittany. Let's see, where do I begin? I think I'm going to begin with describing how I got into business in the first place, because up until the time I had a business before I realized that I ever wanted to be a business owner. I actually never wanted to do business. I swore to myself I was never going to own a business. I'm not interested in business. I'm not interested in all the technicalities, like the money exchange and the sales and all that crap. I didn't want anything to do with it. Really, I was like, oh, I like working with people. I just want to have a job where I can work with people in a deeper way, get outside. Well, I came out to Colorado in 2013 to do the wilderness therapy program. I came here from Indiana. I built in Indiana a trailer to put a motorcycle on to bring it to Colorado. During that drive, I had this idea that, well, maybe somebody needs some help moving a mattress, something else, and so maybe I'll just see if I can make some money off of my little 4x8 trailer. Well, I got to Colorado. I don't even know how I got the idea to post on Craigslist, but that's what I did. I put an ad out on Craigslist, and somebody bid within a day or two, and it blew my mind. Like, why would I would never hire anybody off of Craigslist. That was my mind when I started. And I thought, oh, this is fun. I just made like $20 an hour just hauling my own trailer and moving some stuff. And so I did it again. Somebody bid again. I started looking around and I saw that these movers were charging crazy, crazy high rates. And I could easily charge less and be happy with that. So after a month or two of being here, starting the program, this was right during the 2013 flood, which actually was really good for my business. Because
moved all the things.
Everybody had all this, like, haul it away, just haul it away. So I would just run around and hand out cards, put them in mailboxes. They're like, hey, I got a bunch of soaked carpet, can you take it? Like, sure. And then I get cash, I get paid. I was getting paid cash. So that got me kind of hooked. I loved being able to take a call from somebody and they have a request. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. That's how much this is going to cost. I go and I do it. They give me money. The satisfaction is just immeasurable. I would love for every person in the United States, really everywhere, to have their own kind of business. The amount that you learn by owning your own business, I am so much of a better customer. Like, I'm like, oh, I understand, like, it's hard what you're doing, and, but there's a lot of satisfaction in being able to provide something. I feel wanted. This person wants what I have to offer. It feels fantastic. They're coming to me specifically for this kind of help. A couple months in, I realized that this might actually be enough money to, I have to get another job while I'm in grad school. It is flexible. I take the jobs that I want, turn away the jobs that I can't do. And so I come up with this name, Gary Moves. And it made me chuckle. So I'm like, that's the name of the business. And then I was like, well, I need a website, right? That's what you do when you got a business. You do a website. So I made up a website, hired a friend to do that. I was running under the table for a period of time before I got like, well, this is kind of serious. This is a business. This is what I'm not just like making side cash here. I'm not babysitting or mowing lawns here. So then the website came, and then people were like, oh, do you have a friend to help you move this stuff? I'm like, hey, Becky, somebody needs to move a dresser. And so she comes and she helps me out. And then the next big growing phase was when I started sending my coworkers out in my absence. The amount of trust, whew, man, trust is so important. Sending people out to do a move, handling these people's items when I'm not there to handle it myself. That's a big growing pain, big learning curve for me there. The next big learning curve was when I bought a moving truck. That happened in 2017. And that was a big financial commitment right there. So I was terrified of doing that. But what I found is that with big risk can come big rewards. If you're not willing to take some risk, then you're not going to get too far. Like Brittany was saying, what risk is going to be stomachable for you? 2016, I graduate. I was at an internship that fortunately allowed me to take my private practice clients with me to seed my own practice. Border Emotional Wellness, and you know that one. And so I just opened up my private practice. Having already had some experience with the moving business, it wasn't so intimidating to just, open up an office space. And that's where my calling is. But I kept the moving business because it's money. It's money. I found that I actually love picking something up, putting it down in some other place, and people love it. I mean, it is so satisfying to satisfy somebody. If you have a service-oriented type of attitude, if you love making people happy, business ownership might be a good thing for you. But you've got to be able to handle the kind of risk and the stress, because at the end of the day, when one of your movers messes up or you've got an unhappy customer basically, then how are you going to take care of them? Because reputation is everything. Reputation is everything. Like you said, word of mouth is huge. Yes, so since 2016, I've been growing my private practice bit by bit. It's been an interesting, it's an art. Doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that. Do a little bit, if you're in grad school, do a little bit of grad school, do a little bit of work. I became workaholic, like full-on workaholic. It ruined some relationships for me. At the start, I was working, I felt like I needed to bend over backwards, nonstop. I needed to be on moves at 7 a.m. I needed to be willing to go until 9 p.m., answer customers like hours before their move is supposed to start, and it was unreasonable. I was putting the customers first far too often. I don't think that that's necessary. So there's probably some more I could share there, but I want to go over these tips. These are some of the things that I've learned over the years that, by the way, nobody taught me anything. If you like to learn on your own, if you like to just do it and figure it out, then business ownership might be the thing for you. So in my case, I started it as a side gig. I didn't quit my day job. I fitted in around the rest of my life. I invested, I've not had any debt with my business. I don't know how often that is, or how practical or changeable that is to your individual cases, but I cannot, too much risk for me is taking out huge loans or debts. in order to get something going. No, I already had a trailer, and Craigslist was free at the time. The website was just a little bit of money. I mean, my first year I had maybe $1,000 in it, and it's word of mouth. Word of mouth would just spread, and I happened to be fortunate enough to tap into a market that was there. I did not invest in the company until I had established that there was a market. It is much, much more difficult to create a market. So that might be something that you would want to look into. Is there an actual market for what it is that you have to provide, whether it's a product or a service? And test the waters. Keep your day job and then experiment. It's something that you kind of enjoy. Making bracelets, I don't know, like walking dogs, or do a little bit of side private practice or coaching, or something that you enjoy, and see if people are receiving you well, right? Use that feedback and then build upon it. But don't quit your day job. So Gary Moves has been feeding me. This is moving into tip number 2. But that's not satisfying my calling. My calling is to help people acquire a deeper sense of safety within themselves, to lead a richer life, to go on adventures that they didn't think that they ever could, to feel fuller in their relationships. And while I definitely bring that as part of me, I bring that into Gary Moves. I care about my customers, I care about my employees, I care about the things that we're moving for people. I think it's such an honor to go into someone's home. I love staying after a move and chit-chatting. How's life? How's the transition? Right? This is moving into one of the other tips. Relationships are everything. I can't stress that one enough. Everybody at Naropa already had some capacity for positive relationship, I think, before they came to Naropa. I think Naropa attracts a certain quality of person. And then you receive a lot of special training. So use that training in your interactions with customers, with your employees, with your coworkers. The relationships are where your money is. If you don't have relationships, you don't have money. So you need to feed the relationships. And looking into whatever business idea that you have in mind, how are you going to feed your relationships? It comes back. It comes back. What I found is that you're selling trust. A lot of times in all the businesses, what we're doing is we're selling the trust. And people like that one-on-one attention. Oftentimes, they don't even care about anything other than just getting your undivided attention. They forget about the moving service. They forget about this or that when you're just dedicated to them as a human being and they feel your human presence. Another interesting thing for me personally is I've hired friends. My business started with all my friends, and they were employees and people I was hanging out with. It's an interesting dual relationship there. But it's doable if you know how to navigate relationships, and if the people that you choose to work with know how to navigate relationships. It's possible to keep those separate, right? You want to have clear policies and procedures. I hate rules. I should say I don't like to follow rules. I really don't. I like to do what I want to do. I want to live my life. And I've had people on my team teach me that it's useful for them to know how to do things. And customers benefit by knowing what the rules are. So over time, I've just standardized things. I have clear expectations. I've got clear ways of doing things, and way to not do things, and I communicate that with the customers as well. Boundaries, have them. Your customers will adapt, and boundaries establish value. This was a hard one for me. If you don't have boundaries as a self-employed person, you're going to end up workaholic, is my suspicion. So if you already know that you've got some boundary work to do in yourself, do it now. Do it now. You'll work too late. You will do for customers what you don't want to do. You'll do for employees what you don't want to do. And that, all of that's going to create resentment. You're going to get burned out. The more burned out you are, the less present you're going to be, the poorer you're going to perform. There's this idea that if I have a boundary, if I say no to someone, if I say no to a customer or employee, my needs aren't going to be met. Somehow, some way, I'm not going to be okay. So you have to experiment with that. At least that's what I did. Telling the customer no, saying this is when I stop, no, I can't help you at that time, you have to pay for this. You have to be able to hold a hard line. And what I found is that the customers will adapt to you. If you say, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, that suddenly is like, oh, okay, you've got clear boundaries. People will adjust to you. You got to get out of this idea, if you haven't already, of the idea that you have to constantly move to make space for somebody else. Okay? You have a right, especially as a business owner, you need to be able to own this right. So this is where I stand, and other people need to be able to honor where it is that I am. That's a hard one to learn. Know where to advertise. I wasted money and a lot of time advertising in ways that don't reach the people that I'm trying to reach. For moving, I've identified its reviews. Google reviews and Yelp reviews. For counseling, Psychology Today is, and then word of mouth are some of the biggest ways. Don't waste your money on a bunch of stuff that isn't going to reach your market. So look into how does your market find what it is that you have to offer? Do they search online? Where online? One of the best tips I've received is insert yourself into your demographic. Be with the people you want to serve. That's a more advantageous way to network and promote yourself. If you're advertising to everybody, you're advertising to nobody. So that's another tip. Differentiate. Declare your niche. If you're going into private practice, it seems counterintuitive and even inauthentic to say, for example, I work in my private practice, I work a lot with men. Men and addiction and relationships, but men is kind of the core of all of that. And it was really hard for me to say that's who I work with. But by doing that, it seems to have put energy out into the universe that said, okay, Gary, here you go. We want to give you what you've asked for. It's important, I feel, to identify who it is that you want to help and how it is that you're going to help them. The clearer that you are with that, the more you can insert yourself and promote yourself. If I go and I say, oh yeah, I do this and this and I help this and this and this and that, and then people aren't going to remember that. People are going to remember one thing. It's about all, and then they need to hear it again and again and again. Gary works with men. Gary works with men. Oh yeah, Gary works with men. So, narrow it down. It's hard to do, but it helps. Ooh. I want to play a video. While I get this going, you kind of mentioned it, but grow in waves. You'll get burned out growing your business, so stop. Listen to yourself. It's too much. So put your attention on something else for a time. pick it up when you got some more inspiration and grow the business some more then. Has anyone heard the Will Smith pep talk on failure? Well, we're going to hear it again.
Fail early, fail often, fail forward. It's always a little bit frustrating to me when people have a negative relationship with failure. Failure is a massive part of being able to be successful. You have to get comfortable with failure. You have to actually seek failure. Failure is where all of the lessons are. When you go to the gym and you work out, you're actually seeking failure. You want to take your muscles to the point where you get to failure, because that's where the adaptation is. That's where growth is. Successful people fail a lot. They fail a whole lot more than they succeed, but they extract the lessons from the failure, and they use that, the energy, and they use the wisdom to come around to the next phase of success. You gotta take a shot. You have to live at the edge of your capabilities. You gotta live where you're almost certain you're going to fail. That's the reason for practice. Practice is controlled failure. You're getting to your limit, getting to your limit, getting to your limit. You can't lift that. You can't do that. Until you get to the point that all of a sudden your body makes the adjustment, and then you can do it. Failure actually helps you to recognize the areas where you need to evolve. So fail early, fail often, fail forward.
What you said, right? I feel like that's about enough there. On the back of this tips page are some resources I personally use. I can only recommend them because they're the ones that I've used. And you might use that as a bit of a checklist of things to do, depending on the nature of your business. I think with that, open it up to Q&A related to something that I specifically said, or if you have any other general questions that the three of us didn't answer during this time.
I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit more specifically about private practice, seeing as maybe some other people in the room might have more specific interest in that. Like, what are some of the lessons that would be applied specifically to that date?
Are you familiar with paperwork? Yeah. Well, you gotta have your paperwork in order. I would get your paperwork in order before you open up your private practice. You gotta have your confidentiality disclosure agreements, and you can take one from your supervisor, copy and paste, and then add in your own terms as you see fit. What I did was I looked at a lot of different disclosures, like, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that policy. And then I just plugged it all in there. So you want to have that. I rent space. There's a couple of places where you can rent office space by the hour.
Where are those and how do you find them?
Two of the most common ones, popular ones in Boulder are, the one I use is Boulder Healing Hub, and that's listed there for the office. But there's also, what's the other one?
Sonderline?
Sonderline. Yeah, Sonderline.
You read them before.
The other thing I would say about private practice is actually everything that we talked about specifically will also relate back to your private practice, actually. So even though we're not like saying, oh, this is what you do in a private practice, it is all completely relatable, because I don't know what your internship is like, but you'll have 3 clients in one day and be like, oh my God, when you're first starting, this is exhausting, I don't know how to handle this, like what am I gonna do, how do I survive? And then you kind of like learn how to grow and adapt with that. So it's kind of that whole thing of like, if you can think about like when you started at Naropa to where you are now, there's just growing pains with a private practice. And the same thing is it takes a very long time to grow a private practice. It's that 5-year thing again. The other big thing is like, get a really good supervisor. Like, have a very good supervisor who's gonna like, 1, keep you accountable, and 2, kind of help you through the whole process. Because the marketing is the same thing. It's like, you need to know exactly who you're trying to target, where are you trying to go with that. If you're gonna, and then the next part is like, are you staying in Boulder? Or are you leaving? Are you going to like rural North Carolina to start your private practice? Because that's gonna look dramatically different in this, like I'm from the Southeast, so like therapy is not a big thing there still. Like just is. But like that's gonna be way different than in Boulder. But in Boulder, it's highly saturated, so what's your niche? My niche is equine therapy. I don't have an office. I tried the office thing. It didn't work for me because it's, what works for me is to be, my niche is working with equine facilitated psychotherapy. So and then like I have an even smaller niche, is like I'm really skilled at working with people on the autism spectrum. I'm also really good at working with women. So it's kind of that whole thing of like find your niche, know what it is, like what Gary is saying, and then target it. So it's just kind of that like piece of it.
And you can take that a step further, beyond just targeting who your client is. Put yourself in their shoes. Where do they shop? What are their struggles? What do they eat? What are their concerns? What are the pressures that make them who they are? What would make them come to you? You think of all those things. I drew a mind map on the wall over there, and I try to put a business in there, an idea or a part of the business, and extrapolate from there. It's kind of complicated. Check it out on the way out. But basically, you're looking at all the different areas of your business. You're looking at marketing, you're looking at research and development, you're looking at what products you have, what services you have, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to your business. And if you think about it, there's a difference between therapy, between consultation, between individual therapy, between group therapy, and coaching as well. And while they're very similar, each of those is still going to have a different client profile. They're going to have a different need. And so you're going to want to adapt your skill sets, your essence to those needs. And we talked about starting your business and where do you get some of the starting capital so you don't have a mom who can help. Or what I had to do is I had to say yes, 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 yes. One of my business cards you'll see I do handyman work, I do pet care, I do hands-on caregiving, I do private instructions. I do a whole bunch of things because the money that I make there fuels my ability to advertise as a therapist. It pays for my, honestly, I haven't had a client in 4 months, but I paid 4 months of rent so far to my office. I'm the only one that goes and visits that office. But that's okay, because I'm still getting in the practice and developing the routine and holding that space for when that time comes, I'm ready for my client. It's a $400 expense, or, well, depends on where your monthly wages are, but whatever your expenses are, you have to hold that framework and say, what is my return on investment? How can I make this? I just booked an $800 trip to go to Texas for next month. I don't have $800, so what do I have to do? I have to bust my butt on my other side gigs to pay for the trip. And then when I have the trip, I have to think, okay, so how can I make more than an $800 return on investment just by going and teaching? So what am I doing? I'm looking on Psychology Today. I'm looking on Psychology Today for people in Texas who work with my population. And I get their numbers and I talk to them and I network with them. So when I go out there to Texas, I already am in conversation with people. I'm networking, I'm building my network. Right? This grand vision, my goal is 35 by 35. I want to speak in 35 states by the time I'm 35, 50 by 50, and 100 countries by the time I'm 100. Right? Dream big. Why not? There's nothing wrong with dreaming big. And when you dream big, you can start to see the whole picture. And then when you start seeing the whole picture, then you can start seeing the details. And you can also start feeling that heartfelt emotion that leads you and guides you.
Is there a specific question you had about it?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
I offer a free 30-minute consultation. I recommend that for the sake of the client to try you out, and it's a way for you to try out the client. If you don't want to take on certain high-risk individuals, it's a way for you to screen them. If you get this gut sense, I didn't talk much about listening to your body, but it's the same. It's a boundary thing, right? Listen to your body. If you're sitting with this new client, you're like, man, I really excited, they just called me and I wanna make money, I see I'm a client, I wanna be a private practitioner. Well, you gotta be able to call me that enough to be like, this is probably not the best, this probably isn't the best person for me. But think of who they might be able to go to. One of the greatest way to get referred to is by referring to people. So refer, find people for your friends who are therapists, and then it's like you want to pay them back. It's mafia. It's reciprocity. It's like, oh, I'm taking care of you, you gotta take care. Okay, maybe not. Something along those lines, right? Make referrals. Yeah.
You made a comment about reaching out to people who have your same niche in your same area. And something in me feels a little nervous about that because I feel weird, like, oh, but we're competition, like, how do we talk about it? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, that's starvation mentality. So both fields I work in, as far as like an equine therapist goes, like our pool is pretty small. I mean, I talk to everybody. I will talk to anybody for hours about what I do. So I talk to a lot of therapists about what I do. Yes, that sometimes means they take my ideas and they take my programming and get paid to do it, which is awesome. But the biggest part of that is, like Gary's saying, like, you never know who's going to refer to you because you're a better fit than somebody else. But what I have found for myself is that the more I live in scarcity mentality and more live from that fear-based mentality of like, oh my God, I'm not going to make any money because, like, you know, my mom helped me out by buying my groceries when I was in grad school. That was what my mom used to do because I couldn't afford to eat, starting my own business. But the more I live from that fear of I'm not gonna make it, I'm not gonna be able to pay my rent, I'm not gonna be able to pay my board, I'm not gonna be able to do whatever, the more problems I would run into from scarcity mentality. And Boulder talks a lot about like, wow, there's like 100,000 therapists or something in Boulder. Like there's a huge number of therapists in Boulder, right? So they get really like kind of on you about that. But yeah, the scarcity mentality is really funny, but the more that we resource guard, animals do this all the time, the more you resource guard, actually, the less likely you are to get clients. And like kind of all across the board. So it just and that's the biggest thing, is like it just takes time. So if you walk out thinking like, I'm gonna have a full private practice in a year, it's probably not gonna happen. And if it does happen, that's awesome. And like, I don't know how you did it, but like, good for you. But the other hard part with that too is like for example, my barn is right next door to another barn, right? We are not, when I first started, we are not in direct competition. We are two very different barns. One is way bigger than mine, mine's way smaller. They started a program that's very similar to the one I started 2 years ago. Well, or that they started last year that I'd been having for 5 years, right? They resource guard. So I got a phone call being like, well, you're stealing my clients and you're doing this and you're doing that, because like they switched barns or they did whatever. And I'm like, wow, I'm really sorry. Like, that's not my intent, and like I'm not going to turn away a client because they need to come here for whatever reason. But it's kind of that, like, how do you be professional and still realize that there's plenty of people out there, because I've sent people to that barn because they are not a good fit for me. Does that make sense? Does that help at all? You guys probably have more to say about that too.
So why do people say it takes 5 years to, and I've heard other people say 3 years, if that's not a mental projection too?
Because if you actually look at like tax records, you have to make money to like, you have to spend money to make money at first, because that's how long it takes to get a return on your investment, basically. Of like
the money you're
everything,
putting
time,
out for the advertising.
but it's not just that,
space.
it's time. It's a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So like I can go back and look at all my taxes for the last 5 years and see like how you get to where you're at. But I don't know, in 2 years and
Yeah, I'm pretty young in my business, 2 years, and at first I was like, okay, it's high ferry, what am I doing with my business? And then I was like, okay, so I work 12 hours a week direct contact with my clients. But then I did some math and I'm like, okay, no, I actually work 31 hours a week on my business. And I do the math, it comes out to, I make about $11 an hour, which isn't too bad, right? It's a little bit above minimum wage. But it wasn't like that for the first couple of months. And then it's been growing and growing, and then, you know, you might need to do a training or do there, and you use your expenses. So you have to spend money to make money. You really do. And the beauty about it is once you have a business, you learn all about Schedule C and tax write-offs. You can have a lot of fun trips that are educational, informative, and bring value to yourself and to your clients.
I'm curious if you guys have all utilized like online resources much, and I know it's easy to just like throw away so much time online trying to market yourself, and I'm wondering if, for counseling specifically, if online marketing is effective or not, and what your experience is.
Well, online marketing, I've got a couple of Facebook pages. For my private practice, it doesn't seem to do a whole heck of a lot. I've done Facebook ads to market groups, and it's not really helped.
For the groups, it didn't help?
Did not help
Oh.
personally. Now, I'm told that there's a way to, Becky's like, she should give her own talk sometime on the marketing and advertising piece. She's had some success with Facebook ads. So for some people, if you know how to do it right, you're able to. It's not really helped me. But the reviews have been helpful. That's in my idea, like having the website and then the reviews has been the biggest thing. Google is a popular search engine, so you want to get found on Google. The way to get found on Google is you got to list your site with Google. You want to have an address listed for your business in Google, and then you want Google reviews. Google reviews are, even for your private practice, are going to help you get found. There's search engine optimization. There's a lot of people out there who will market their services to drive up your SEO. I don't know that you really need to do that. My website creator, for example, Wix, has a SEO optimizer thing, so you can plug in your tag words and your keywords, and so when somebody searches Boulder Men Therapy, there's a chance that mine won't be found. Right?
Have people found you through that, through the website?
I'm not very good at tracking where my private practice clients come from. Some of them I think have come just from online, but a lot of them come through Psychology Today. Psychology Today, if you type in counseling in this area, Psychology Today is top of the list. So you want to get listed. You want to pay $30 a month on Psychology Today.
Yeah, Psychology Today definitely helps. I haven't had much luck with Facebook. What I've known and noticed, so I mean, you can even like find populations. So like for our nonprofit, what we do is like we've emailed school systems, like school counselors, like for this program, right? We're like, hey, we have this free program. Do you have kids that fit this criteria? The problem out here is, well, there's a whole other, lots of problems. But you can just like think about people that you want to like market towards, right? Other places like call physicians' offices, drop by them, like schedule to have coffee with an acupuncturist, you know, and you like, and being like, hey, I offered this, this, and this. Can I take you out for a cup of coffee so I can talk about cross-network referrals? Online stuff hasn't worked for me so much as far as a private practice, other than it works because people find my website through the horses and the therapy. Psychology Today has been the best bet for that. But yeah, a lot of it is definitely word of mouth. It's mailing things to people. If you have really phenomenal collateral, you can, coffee shops. I post a lot of our groups at coffee shops. That's a really great place, but you have to make sure it stands out because there's a lot of things that are put up there that is like kind of interesting, but if you look at it, the content just isn't great and that doesn't catch people's eyes. So it's all about the graphics these days too, especially like the online stuff and the ads online and that type of thing. But
Another thing you could do when you're starting and trying to get everything on the ground, and this goes back to talking to seeming competition, right? network with those people. Find out what they're good at. Find out what they're not good at. Because then you might find someone that you can cross-collaborate and do a supervision group, or you can do a mixed group where you do half the group, they do half. There's a lot of different opportunities. If you're going to have your website, yeah, definitely work on the search engine optimization, and find something that's unique that you can provide and phrase it in a way that's unique. So if you type in dementia-friendly fishing, I'm the only one that comes up, okay? I have that market, and until someone else starts to approach that, I'm going to be number one on that list. So, I know, right? So find what that is for you. Find what, Kelly's Custom Cakes or whatever that is, find your specific niche, your specific opportunity, phrase it, trademark it, protect your material, copyright it as soon as you can. It's not a really complicated process, but you're going to need to lawyer up to do that. And I think if we have any other questions, now's a good time. And if not, Kelly, would you like to close?
Yes. Any other questions? What did you say your website was, it again, that has the search engine optimization within it? Is it your
Both
platform?
of them do.
Did you say Wix?
Oh, Wix.
How do you spell that?
WIX. Yeah, there's a few different type of website builders. I'm sure that they all.
Yeah, most of them all, you just buy into the platform, and then you can go in and create it from the platform.
Okay.
So like Squarespace is like the one I use. And then you have to buy the website URL,
Right.
unless you want to have
I
it
already have
Wix or whatever.
URL.
Yeah.
So one.
Yeah, that's the last tip. Go to Namecheap. It's a website. Purchase a website that matches who you are. Like I looked up Healing with Andrew, already taken, right? So you could say therapywithjessica.com, right? It tells you right what you're doing, gets right to the point, clear message. Healing with Kevin, or whatever that looks like. Get your website as soon as possible. Because I try and type in my name to get a website, and they want $20,000 for it. You're kidding me? Just for a website. So get your name, specialize it. You might buy 3 or 4. I bought contemplativecaregiver.com. Within 2 months, someone bought contemplativecaregiving.com. Oh my goodness, I wish I would have bought it at the same time, because they're tangible. So if you have something that might continue to grow and expand, buy that too. Because it's probably like $10 a year, and you can hold on until when you're ready to invest into that.
Thank you all so much. I don't know about what each of you got from this, but I felt excited and possibility and also realness of like, yeah, this is hard, gritty work. And I feel, hearing your success stories, that it's possible. So I feel very inspired, and also a realness about how you all approach that. It was refreshing, and it wasn't just like, yeah, business is great, you're gonna make $100,000 a year and have a full practice. It was very real and approachable, and also had the essence of possibility. So thank you each for that, and thank you all for coming to this and continuing to support all the efforts that we're doing. Have a great weekend. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. And in terms of people staying connected with y'all, or interested in referring or reaching out through your materials.
I have business cards too, if you guys want those. But yeah, I also have more, if there was something out there that y'all weren't able to grab, I have more things. So.
Is there a networking, like either Facebook page or a chat where we can all go along and talk to each other about possible ideas? Like, I would just think I'd love to have fun with that.
Good question. The Facebook Naropa alumni page, that's your best bet.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's a Facebook page for that.
Oh, nice. Sound love to that programming.
What is it called exactly?
You
You just search Naropa University alumni.
I think so. I'll check on the way out if it's the one I grabbed.
And also you can ask Elizabeth Annis, the Family Alumni Relations Officer. Okay.
Do a lot.
Her email is
I don't do any too much, but I think I'm following you. Oh, nice.
Count on you for
At me or with me?
Yeah.
Oh, specifically talk about Sunday or talk about like the talk Sunday. Activism, stuff like that.
I think you might have something for your career.